Morning. Bring them up, would you please? Ladies and gentlemen, please say good morning to the best I know. Julie Hayden joins us from Fox News, and, of course, Carol McKinley was with Fox for years, and all three of us have worked together, and all three of us went through the Ramsey debacle, and now it all rises to the surface again. So, first of all, Julie, I know you might be under the gun. Good morning to you.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, and Skins, good morning, man. How are you?
Hey, great. How are you doing, Pete?
It's like really, I talked to everybody again. I talked to Carol last night. I talked to Silverman yesterday afternoon. It's like the Ramseys bring us all back together. It's like a family reunion, Skins.
And I can hear radios clicking off everywhere, all over Denver.
I don't know.
People love it.
Yeah, one of the things that Silverman said this morning is there still interest in this case? And I think obviously there is, but that's just me. What do you think? First of all, Julie, what do you think? Is there still interest in the story?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
And, I guess I'll go ahead and say, and if there isn't, there should be. I mean, a little girl was horribly murdered in her home, and somebody got away with it. And I think if we don't care about that, then I think there's something wrong.
Carol, your thoughts?
Well, all I can say, and maybe you guys get the same thing, I hear people say that it's tabloid and that we shouldn't care about it, but on the other hand, once you get past the tabloid part of it, Julie's right. It was a little girl who was murdered. It's one of the country's biggest unsolved mysteries, really. And everywhere I go, if anybody finds out I cover this case,
right.
It takes over the dinner conversation. I mean, that's all anyone wants to talk about.
Yeah, no, we were talking about many was the night that we were all together, or the dinner parties, and I remember one night Dan Kaplis and myself, a lot of people at the table, and we just ended up, nothing but, an hour. And how many times, Carol, you and I, and Julie, how many times you and I, and people were really just fascinated. At the same time, my sense of anger is that justice was never served, and now it might be.
I don't know about that.
One of the things I think that's interesting, and people can look, on your website and see it in the document, is there's sort of an obscure line in some of these recent pleadings that Charlie Brennan's doing to try to get the indictment released, where the DA's office says that they asked Chief Beckner if they had any objection to the indictment being released and whether it would jeopardize any future ongoing investigation. And he said no. Yeah. Now, in my experience, police never want to release anything, and, sort of it's all reading tea leaves. But to me, I think it's certainly possible to conclude from that Beckner thinks the indictment is correct.
Oh, yeah.
Which is why it wouldn't jeopardize any indictment, which I think is kind of interesting.
Yeah. We said before, the only people that now, I guess, remain, and we brought up Mary Keene and Mary Lacey with Dan and Craig. First of all, she had no authority to exonerate the Ramseys. And second of all, I asked Carol, and I were talking about this last night, as the district attorney, she obviously had access to the grand jury. Did she or did she not see that the grand jury wanted to indict John and Patsy Ramsey for the death of their daughter and yet stand out there in front of people and exonerate them with Michael Tracy, I guess, in the audience? You guys, that just, I can't abide by her in the first place, but what a hole in her soul she must have, having done that.
Yeah, but Mary Lacey was reacting to the DNA, Peter.
Come on.
She was reacting to the DNA they found later that was so small it could have been just the remains of a sneeze, but that's what she was reacting to, was the fact that it was consistent with the DNA on the leggings.
But did she not look at what the grand jury had decided to do?
Yeah,
but the grand jury didn't have the DNA when they did that investigation.
It's one small step for mankind, right? If you take
yeah, and I kind of agree with you on that too, Peter. I think, again, as a prosecutor, you can maybe say something a little bit less, solid. The case is unsolved. And for a prosecutor to come out on an unsolved case where there are questions and just unequivocally say, no, you didn't do it, when your police department is telling you, well, we think they did do it, that's just weird, really.
And I say this with Dan and Craig in the room, Lady Justice wears a blindfold, but she holds scales. And if you put all the evidence on one side that says that John and Patsy did it, and all the evidence on the other side that said they did not, the John and Patsy Ramsey side is going to drop like a rock.
Well, what I understood was that everyone who was around Alex Hunter, remember that DA council, the district attorneys, it was Dave Thomas and Bob Grant and Bill Ritter, all those people. I mean, most of them agreed with Hunter, but the one person who didn't was Dave Thomas.
Right. Dave
Thomas who was the DA of Jefferson County at the time, and he felt like Hunter had enough to go for it. Mm-hmm. The rest of them, including Bob Grant, who I talked to the other day, felt like he should let it lie.
You know, and I'll say this about Dave Thomas. When Charlie's story was first breaking, I know I kind of brought it up not with Dave. He does, because and I guess this is my point. He to this day refuses to talk about it publicly because he says it's an unsolved murder. Yeah, he said I'm not going to talk about it. It's an unsolved murder. You know, and someday it may be solved, and you know, I'm not going to go there. So you know, you're right, Joe. It's sort of like, you know, there's a difference of opinion. But I wonder, though, if any of those other people on the DA council knew that there was an indictment. I kind of wonder. I mean, you know, did Mitch Morrissey know? Did Bob Grant know? That I'm not sure about.
Well, I think Morrissey probably did because he wasn't on that council. He was with Mike Cain and Bruce Levin. So I think those guys knew, and I think Mike Cain was pretty devastated by the announcement. I really think after 18 months of being away, he lived in Pennsylvania. He was flying back and forth here to run that grand jury. And I believe that he went through a real tough time because he felt responsible for nothing coming out of that grand jury.
It was Alex Hunter. Alex Hunter refused to sign the document and prosecute the Ramseys. True or false? True. I mean, Alex Hunter refused the grand jury investigating the Ramsey case in 1999 voted to indict the parents on charges of child abuse resulting in death. Now, as Craig Silverman points out, that was bizarre in the first place, but because there should have been first degree, because after she was struck, she was garroted. But having said that, let it go at that. Hunter refuses to sign the document and refuses to prosecute John and Patsy. And in the time to come, that idiot, Mary Lacey, exonerates them. And
well, she should never have gone on the record in doing that, because I'm sure Julie's seen this. But on that, in some of the pleadings with this grand jury true bill, Brian Morgan since has brought up that Mary Lacey exonerated him. So he is using that as part of his argument to keep this thing from being opened up.
Yeah.
And we thought they might, you know, that they could go back and say, hey, one DA said they didn't do it. And for sure, it's come out just yesterday when the Boulder Daily Camera interviewed Brian Morgan. He said, well, you know, one DA came out and gave him a free pass.
Yeah, but that's unbelievable.
He's already using it.
Yeah, well, of course, but you know, let me read you from the statements that were made. Hal Haddon is now their lawyer, and I said this earlier, and I think Mr. Haddon should read his client, because there's only one of them left. John Ramsey and Patsy Ramsey wrote a book entitled The Death of Innocence, and they went out and proclaimed their Christianity, and so they found a religious publishing house to publish their book. Mm-hmm. And this is John Ramsey obviously lying. This is their book. This is page 357, Skins. John writes, "The battered justice system had creaked and shuddered, but it had worked. We had not been indicted. People would finally see the jury's decision as our vindication. Whatever time had been lost with the grand jury hearing must be made up quickly." Jump ahead, page 359, John Ramsey. "After looking at all the evidence or lack of it, a grand jury of our peers has not indicted Patsy and me. It seems the system functioned as our Constitution had intended. We are truly grateful." Well, what did Gomer Pyle say? Surprise, surprise. The grand jury wanted to indict you, John. They wanted to indict Patsy as well. I wonder if you're truly grateful now.
Well, I think, I wonder, Julie, have you talked to any of these grand jurors at all?
Julie's son is, you know, he's.
Oh, she's gone off.
She had to go be a mom, so.
Oh, okay.
That's way more important than this.
Well, you know, it's kind of interesting when you see all this time that's gone by. It's going to be 17 years on December 26th.
She'd be 20 what? 23 years old, yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
yep.
That's horrible.
A lot of people have died. I'd sure like to see these grand jurors come out and say something, because now we're looking at secrets dying with people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, people go to their grave and they keep the secrets with them.
Sure.
Maybe Patsy Ramsey had a secret she took to her grave.
Maybe.
You know.
What's the odds of maybe, right?
You know, but in trying to contact these grand jury members in the last week, I work for ABC now, and so we were trying to find one to talk to us, and 3 of them have passed away.
Yep.
3 of the 12
Yep.
original, so that leaves 9. You know, only 9 had to sign this true bill to get it through. So once this comes out this week, we're going to see whether there was disagreement, whether they were all in agreement on this on this true bill. So that's going to be something I'm going to look forward to. And apparently, I believe this true bill has gone to the judge under seal. Mm-hmm. So the judge has it, and hopefully he'll come out with a decision in the next couple of days. You know, by the end of the week, we'll be able to see which grand jurors voted for, and whoever's name is left off means they didn't. And from what I understand from talking to a couple of grand jurors, they were pretty much all in agreement. There wasn't the words they told me were, "This was not 12 angry men."
No, I mean this was not a whodunit.
But sometimes you'll have someone who disagrees and backs down.
Sure,
but I was told that most of them were pretty much on the same page.
I think any reasonable person who sees what's available knows it's not a whodunit. And having said that, we'll see what happens next. Will John Ramsey survive unscathed? That's really the only question I think that's out there right now.
Well, here's the other question. Right. Do you think this true bill even makes any difference? I've had people say, who cares? I mean, the DNA came out later. Who cares about this? It makes no difference whatsoever.
You can say who cares, and those are people that are generally either pro the DA's office in Boulder, the former DA's officers in Boulder, or whomever.
Yeah.
But my point is that John Ramsey, as my grandma said, has been riding his high horse for a long time, and I just like to see him get knocked off it. And I don't know.
But the statute of limitations is already gone.
Silverman made that point.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing that I think you can do except, as I said, he can be an Old Testament leper. Everywhere he goes, bells are ringing when he walks in, and people will know this is John Ramsey. And
and I think the longer this goes unsolved, does it point to the parents more, or does it point to an intruder more? I mean, at this point, there have been millions and millions of people who are in that CODIS database who are in prison. That DNA is checked against everyone who ever goes into prison. And every day goes by, there are hundreds more, and it hasn't matched anybody. No one.
And, of course, Mary Lacey, Michael Tracy, and those people, with the help, by the way, of INS, create John Mark Carr.
Well, that was the greatest debacle of the case.
That's Mary Lacey. I don't think it was the greatest debacle. The greatest debacle was what happened.
That's true. That's true.
But Michael Tracy creates John Mark Carr, and Mary Lacey goes along with it, and they should both just live in shame for that alone.
Yeah, that was awful. That was pretty awful. And Jim Kohler, who's a friend of mine, who was the lead DA investigator under Mary Lacey, quit right before John Mark Carr was arrested.
No, she's horrible.
And I was told Tom Bennett, who was also one of the lead investigators. Mark, would you get that, please? Yeah. Someone's at the door. See what happens when you call someone at home?
That's right.
Told them in May, before this happened, that they would have egg on their face if they went after John Mark Carr. He knew it.
I remember that day so well. And Channel 9 was fed that story. There's no question in my mind. 9 was the favorite. And Paula Woodward, who laid down for the Ramseys more time isn't enough. And she also laid down and Mary Keenan Lacey and Michael Tracy, who appeared on Channel 9 numbers of times. And you remember that time, Skins, when we were down on Lawrence Street, and Michael Tracy wanted to make his documentary film, and he had been hatcheting people, and he came in and they wanted to do a film, and they wanted me to be part of it. And I told Michael Tracy, I said, I'd be glad to be, part of your film crew. We'll go back into KHLW studios. We'll turn on the microphones. You set up your cameras, and we'll do an interview. And every time you ask me a question, I get to ask you a question. And the first person, I don't know if you were there. And I said, the first person that doesn't answer loses. And he wouldn't. That was when he packed up his 2-bit camera operation and stalked out in a huff, trying to be a badass. But I'm saying that's Michael Tracy. Michael Tracy should not even be on the faculty of the University of Colorado.
I don't even know if they don't have a journalism department. I wonder if he's still there.
And Mary Keenan Lacey should have her license to practice law lifted. I mean, truly.
Well,
I know you don't have to agree or disagree. My point is that what these people did, creating John Mark Carr and the rest of the crap.
That was ridiculous.
Oh, but they created him. They groomed him. Michael Tracy groomed him, and that idiot Mary Lacey went along with it. And I remember the afternoon when that happened, and the next day, and I said, "There's no way. This is not this guy." I was, and I don't care what I'm called. It doesn't trouble me so much. What I'm saying is, boy, that it all came out. Boy, the Rocky Mountain News was, the Ramsey Mountain News were writing. They were doing the cartoons and all this kind of stuff. And then finally, I was the topic in a cartoon strip in the Rocky Mountain News, and like I said, I'm not saying this because it troubles me.
Well, it's because you were outspoken, Peter.
Sure.
I mean,
and what I'm saying to you is, John Mark Carr was never even in Colorado, and he was groomed by Michael Tracy, just like you would groom a child.
Yeah, he emailed him for months.
Oh,
for months.
And that idiot in the DA's office went along with it. So pox on all of them.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm really interested to see if this judge, back to this True bill. I'm really interested to see if this judge is going to see it enough to where he'll release it. If he doesn't, we all go away. If he does, and we find out that John and Patsy Ramsey were, the grand jury wanted to indict them for child abuse resulting in death.
We know they wanted to do that.
Well, I just want to see the document. It's been a long time since we've seen anything official released out of this case.
No, you're right about
Everything's been just you and me talking, and us talking to sources, and not really having anything on paper. So this will be a good thing. I'll tell you, I talked to Stan Garnett the other day, and he said, nothing about this case is good for my office.
No, well. Stan's a good guy.
He's
like
not
Stan.
happy about it being opened up.
Well, you know what? I'm not responsible for what somebody did on the radio before I got here. And neither is Stan Garnett responsible for Hunter and that idiot. So
Right.
He's not responsible.
No,
but
it's in his lap.
Well,
no, he's a good DA.
Yeah, he is a good DA.
And he has a lot of things going on in that office besides this.
No, I know, I understand that, but this is his chance to clean it up.
Well, at first, we didn't know what this was going to be. We thought it might have been the entire file. We're not going to see the entire file.
No.
All we're going to see is a decision with some names signed on it.
That's all right. That's a good place to start.
I have talked to several grand jurors. They wouldn't go on record, but most of them are sticking to their oath. Whomever Charlie's talking to.
Well, there may be
good for him. I don't know who it is, but
remember,
they all want to know who's talking. They all want to know who it is, and because most of them are saying. In fact, I talked to one. Finally, her husband got on the phone and said, "Look, you got to stop calling me. She's not going to talk to you. She's never told me anything, and I'm her husband, and I sleep with her."
Yeah. Well, you remember, all I can remember is the Rocky Flats grand jury, and finally, because they knew exactly the dirty things that had happened, and finally they broke their silence.
That was oh my gosh, that was...
No, that was great.
Else.
That was great, and that's called a runaway grand jury.
Now, tell me something. Was that Morgan, too? Was that the same lawyer?
I believe so, but don't hold me to that.
Yeah.
But I remember when they broke and said, look, this is what these chemical manufacturers did. This is what the federal government did. This is what the Department of Energy did. This is what the Department of Defense did. But you know what? And that ended the career of a federal judge. But the point is they were, but I remember that so well. And
now I've heard that this judge, because all the Boulder judges recuse themselves.
Right.
He's just a domestic abuse judge. He's not a criminal guy.
He can still make a good decision.
Well, because of that, some of the DAs around are saying, well, of course he's going to open it up. He doesn't really understand the importance of grand jury secrecy.
Oh, sure.
So they're all betting that he will.
Oh, of course he will.
It'll be interesting to see. I wonder if it'll be today or tomorrow. Because what's going to happen is it'll come out in an order.
Sure.
And we won't know about it. It'll be on LexisNexis.
We'll see it.
Until the right reporter checks it, we won't know.
I talk to you when that drops.
All right, Pete. We'll tell Julie. Sorry she had to go, but when you've got a baby, that's the way it goes, huh? How old is that baby anyway?
He's almost
probably 2, huh?
Yeah, he's 2.5, I think.
Aw.
He's a good kid. He's a great kid.
Oh,
right,
that's
Johnny.
great.
I love
Thanks,
you.
Pete.
Thanks,
Talk
Ken.
to you later.
You
love
too.
you too.
Are we going to open lines?